everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Mike Neely, owner and investment consultant here at Equity 401k Consultants. My guest joining me today is Daniel Lopez from Empire Business Law. As you guys know, my mission with Equity 401k Consultants is building prosperity for businesses and security for employees. So as part of that mission, my goal is to help provide partners and perspectives that you might not be aware of to help you run your business. So not just the whole retirement plan aspect and the benefit plan aspects of things, but having some other points of view and some other valuable content that hopefully will help you grow your business so that you can prosper. So Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Why don't you take a couple of seconds here and introduce yourself and your company for the listeners here today.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me. So I'm Daniel Lopez. You guys can call me Danny. I'm the founder of Empire Business Law. We are a business and trademark law firm. We have two primary locations. The first one, which was the first location, is in Ontario, California, right here in the Inland Empire. The second one is in my home of New Jersey, in Hoboken, New Jersey. And we help business owners as well as aspiring business owners with the legal aspects of their business.
Awesome. So Daniel, you and I met through networking, through other channels, and you've always been helpful when it has been, time for questions for me and running my practice, as well as I know that you've helped answer questions for some of my clients. And so you and I had a really great conversation the other day in regard to copyright, patents, and trademarks, and focusing specifically in on trademark law. So let's talk a little bit about trademarking and the protection that provides a business owner, because when I was asking you some things, I thought that incorporating or having a DBA for my practice essentially provided me some protection there for the name, but that actually isn't 100% true. So let's talk a little bit about trademarking and what that means for a business.
Yeah, so when it comes to trademarking and the things that businesses should worry about, it comes down to a few things. The first thing, and I think it's the most important thing, is you never want to be in a position to be infringing on anybody else's trademark. Reason for that is lawsuits are expensive. If you're sued by someone who has deep pockets, it gets very expensive. So one of the things that we always want to tell our clients, especially our newer clients, right? If you're starting a business or if you're in the first year or two and you see that your business is growing, we want to make sure that as your business is growing, you're not going to catch the eyes of, let's say, a Nike or a big company like that would be very litigious in protecting their brand. The second thing you want to do is you also want to protect your brand. You do that by getting trademark registration and by getting that protection. A lot of times what happens is people get popular. Now we have the internet where everything's shareable at the use of a thumb. When that happens, people take advantage of brands that are growing, companies that are growing, and they might either try to copy it or they might try to do things that are similar. So people think that those products or services are coming from their location instead of the rightful owner. Well, we don't want that to happen. We want you to have remedies for that, right? You spend a lot of time building your business. You want to make sure that it's protected.
Right. And, your brand is your identity. So when you're out there putting out your logo and your marketing, you're basically putting your identity out into the world, right? So as a business, though, when does it make sense for me to trademark specific aspects of my business? Is it before I start marketing? Is it, during what if I came as a small business owner just getting started. I've got this great logo, these great marketing materials. Should I be worried about copywriting them or trademarking things just yet? Or should it be as, my company grows that I should start worrying about, trademarking those different aspects of my identity?
The truth is it kind of all depends on your goals. We know that there are certain things in business, such as how much something costs, that can really become a challenge. For example, if you're a company who's trying to get investors, right? Let's say that you have a great product or service that you think you're going to ask for money, whether it be through something like one of those websites that you can fundraise through, or whether it's private investors. One of the things that you want to make sure as an investor is that you're not going to run into some kind of litigation for something that's avoidable.
Right.
In that situation, it would make a lot of sense, and I would say recommend it, that you get trademark protection at the beginning of it. So before you start marketing, before you start even meeting with investors, you want to make sure that your mark, your brand, your logo will be protected. What happens all the time is you can show your brand and your logo to somebody else. They can say, hey, this is a great idea, but your product might suck. So we're going to go ahead and start using this because I think our marketing team can really do a lot with this. You don't want that to happen. The second thing is, though, sometimes you don't know whether you're going to be in business long term. So even though the safest thing to do is to do it right up front, sometimes you just don't know, and that's okay. But once you start getting traction, once you start seeing things like, hey, maybe now I have 50 people liking this Instagram post, or maybe you're going to be in a magazine, or maybe someone's going to promote you in some way, right? Maybe the news, whatever it is. In those situations, you want to make sure that you're going to be protected. So that's kind of the second time where I'm like, hey, this is definitely when you need it. The best answer is always get it at the beginning, but I know that's not practical for everybody. And sometimes people might not even know that they want to run that business long term. So best practice is get it early. But if you can't get it early, or let's say you're unsure about it early, definitely as you begin to grow.
And I think it also brings up, kind of another point again, is a lot of businesses think that, like I mentioned earlier, they're protected just by incorporating their business, but that's not protecting your identity of the brand, right? I mean, that's just potentially protecting you from somebody else, say in California, coming in my case, using Equity 401k Consultants Inc. or, something like that. But that doesn't protect me from them, not going after my logo, right? Or going after something that is a big part of my identity to the brand, correct?
That's correct. So the best way to think about it is your business legal name, right? The name that you use in your articles of corporation or your LLC. Think of that as who you are inside, right? It's the name that's going to follow you everywhere. Your brand name, the name that goes out to people, that's the name that you need to protect, because it's the one that you're either going to be infringing on someone, or that can potentially be infringed on you. So whatever you perceive yourself as, right? One of the things that you mentioned, the DBA previously, what a lot of companies do is they'll name their corporation after themselves, right? So in this situation, let's say I was Danny Inc., right? What a great name. I probably won't sell a lot of things. But if I said, okay, let's use this DBA, you might think that you have protection in the DBA because, for this example, it's Danny Inc. My DBA is going to be Lawyers R Us. Terrible name as well, but whatever. Right? That's not what we're here to judge. So Lawyers R Us might be a DBA, but your DBA doesn't protect you until you register it as a trademark, right? The only way to really protect your name is to register as a trademark. There's situations that happen that we won't get into that, you might have certain protections like geographically. That's called a common law trademark. But for the most part, to really get protected, you'll need a federal trademark. And that's what the USPTO, that's your traditional trademark registration. You'll see your little circle R's all over the place, right? Or the TM symbol next to names. That's what you really want to go after. And the only way to do that is through registering with the USPTO.
Now, let's talk about the process of registering, because there's not just one type of trademark, right? There's several different types of trademarks. How do you choose which is appropriate for you and your particular, part of your identity or thing that you're trying to register?
Yeah, to be honest with you, there's a lot to it that a lot of people fumble when they do it on themselves. One of the misconceptions is if I trademark something, it's protected across everything. That's just not true. One of the best examples of this is Delta. There's Delta Airlines and then there's Delta Appliances. Well, guess what? Those are two different companies. Obviously, they do two very different things. That's why they're each allowed to exist within their own name right. I'm not telling you to go start a law firm and name it Nike either, right? There's certain things called famous marks, and those get protected across the spectrum of it, right? So think of Amazon. I dare you to go start an Amazon bookstore, and I promise you that won't end well for you, right? The best way to kind of think of it to get back to your question with it is, yes, look, filing a trademark registration is easy as far as physically filing it. However, the analysis that goes into what you should file, when you should file it, what you should file it for, that's a little bit different. In my opinion, the most important part of filing a trademark happens before that, and that's doing a trademark search. One of the services that we provide, and I say everyone should do this, is have a comprehensive trademark search. Yes, you can Google a word and see what comes up around. What you can't do with Google, because it's so geolocated, is find out if someone outside of your state is using it, maybe outside of your country. I'm not saying those things that won't show up in that Google search, but sometimes you miss those things, right? Maybe it's on page 15. I can't name one person who hits page 15 of Google anymore, right? So it's really important to do a right comprehensive search. You'll want to know whether a business is using it as its business name, if it's using it as its trade name, right? All those things are important to consider before filing a trademark, because once you file a trademark, it becomes public knowledge that you're planning to use this name. And once it's public knowledge, anyone can kind of look at it and say, hey, that's really close to my name. Should I sue this person? Right? It's kind of the way it works. As trademark lawyers, part of our job is to look for our clients to see if someone is using their marks. And if we find someone on the USPTO who's filing for that mark, we're going to investigate. So that's kind of one of the ways to think about it. And last thing on the registration, there's also things like logos that you register. There's slogans that you register. You can register colors. You can register a lot of different things. Packaging is one of the most common things that people register if they have specific packaging. Think of whiskey bottles and Jack Daniels, right? That's a trademark bottle.
Right.
And you also,
Right.
yeah, you can also file internationally if your product's internationally. But the biggest point too here is, if you're going to file an in-use trademark, which is one that gives you the most protection, you have to be using it already. You can also file an in-use, which says that you plan on using it, but you will have less protection with that. So I know that's kind of a long way to explain that, but there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it was a great answer, because I think people forget, like when you talk about like slogans and how that things get done, like the Ohio State, like they got that trademark.
The word the is trademarked for a certain amount of services by Ohio State. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you think, can they do? Yes, because that's their brand. That's when you don't say Ohio State University, you say the Ohio State. When you're watching football games and when they go through at the beginning there and all the players are saying where they went to school, none of them say Ohio State University if they went to Ohio State. They say the Ohio State, like it is their thing. And I think that's important because, like you said, you can trademark just the name, and then you can trademark your logo or specific aspects of your logo, right? Or in the case of Jack Daniels, a specific way that the bottle is made, right? Because that's what people expect when they see a Jack Daniels bottle. I think it's the protection for that well-known aspect of somebody's business is super important, because again, this is their identity and the identity that they've created. And so they're wanting to protect that identity and that brand.
One of the really important aspects of it that is often misguided by a lot of people is it's not just doing the exact same thing. It's anything that might be confusable to consumer. So for instance, with that Jack Daniels, bottle, if I create a bottle that's similar to it, that just looks close to it, it might be different, but looks close enough to it, that's trademark infringement, right? I get this all the time with names where they're like, hey, I spell the with a 3 at the end. Well, if you still pronounce it the, then guess what? That's trademark infringement, right? For trademark infringement, what we look at are things like how it looks, how it sounds, the meaning it gives to people when they see it, right? So a big example, McDonald's, right? If I say I'm loving it, we're all thinking about a Big Mac.
Yeah.
If I were to try to trademark I'm really liking it, guess what? That's still potentially trademark infringement. So,
Right.
those are aspects that you want to look at or at least analyze before filing a trademark application. Because I hate to say it, but it can really come back to bite you in the butt. And it usually doesn't come back to bite you in the butt until you start being successful. And then you have to tear that all down to kind of start all up again.
Yeah.
It can be really hard for business owners.
I can only imagine you spend years of sweat equity building an identity and a brand, and maybe you're located just in, Southern California, but then you start expanding, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, somebody else has that. And now, you've got to start all the way over from scratch and what you built. Unless, of course, you've got enough money to buy whoever else is using it. But, again, I think taking, proper steps as you start to build your identity is what we're trying to get at here, right? Like, so that you're not spending years creating your brand identity to have to tear it all down and start over from scratch. And I think that's a really good segue to another aspect of the services that you provide. You have a checklist that has information to help people that are starting a business, or, like maybe in my case, a business that's been around for a little bit, review things and make sure that there are certain bases covered. Talk a little bit about what that is and what it provides.
So one of the things that we created here for our law firm and for our clients is a business checklist. And what that is things that we find to either A, be essential, or B, be something that we really recommend. So things on there are things like business insurance. Look, I know it sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised the people that say, oh, I didn't know I should have gotten this, right? Other things in there are what to do with the information you have. If you file for an entity, you're going to want to do things like just use your EIN and not your social security number. You're going to want to do things like go get a bank account that's separate from your personal bank account. All those little things are things that people usually forget, or not usually forget, but they can forget. On that checklist are other things too, like make sure you have the proper contracts in place. No more handshake deals when you're a business, right? Let's if we're gonna leave something in 2022, let's leave handshake deals in 2022, right? Just easiest way to protect yourself. And then there's other tips and notes in there. And what is it? It's a resource. We also have another resource for business partners. That's a really fun one that you can do with them. But yeah, we're here to help, and that checklist is one of the ways we do so.
That's great, because I know that, most people maybe are great at a specific thing. In my case, that's, what I do with investment advisory services and that sort of stuff. But, I'm not probably too savvy when it comes to trademark law and what I should be doing. Or if I go into partnership, what are some bases that I should have covered in doing so? Or, maybe I'm great at manufacturing a specific product, but I don't know anything about business insurance. Should I have it? What do I need? I mean, these are all important things that in the end really protect you and protect what you're trying to build, which is the most important part. Because if you're building a business, you're doing it because you're trying to create your livelihood and keep your livelihood. So that's awesome that you guys provide that resource. Danny, where can folks get those resources?
The best thing to do is go on empirebusinesslawfirm.com, and you can find materials such as that, as well as our partnership breakdown, things like that, as well as great articles on our website. You can also book a consultation there if you'd like to speak to us further. We do one free 30-minute consultation if you do want to talk to us about your business.
Awesome. Well, Danny, thank you for taking the time to be with me today and to provide this content for folks that'll be watching or listening to this. I found it of immense value. I hope that all of you that are listening found Danny to have immense value. Again, that was empirebusinesslawfirm.com. You can find him there, as well as access to all of those materials. But don't worry, I'll put those in the video notes, show notes below. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody for taking the time. And Danny, thank you again for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.